Hello and welcome to Barbara's podcast. This is the show for women, all about health, nutrition, and wellness. It's the show that will empower you and inspire you to create a healthier lifestyle.
Hello and welcome. I'm Barbara Carafocus, and on today's podcast, I have a lovely guest, Monika Malan, who is here to share her journey from battling depression and anxiety to teaching other mums how to cope with the anxiety of being a new mum. So welcome, Monika.
Hi, Barbara. Thank you for having me.
Can you tell us a bit about your journey from battling depression and anxiety to becoming a life coach and mentor for new mums?
Sure thing. So my battle with depression and anxiety started when I was about 21, officially in any case. My brother unexpectedly passed away. He was 18 at the time, and I'd moved away from home to study.
Yeah.
So I was on my own with no support network or anything like that. And that really threw me for a loop. So I fell into a very deep depression, and it took me 6 months before I got help. But since that time, I have been going to see a therapist regularly, and I am on anti-anxiety and depression meds.
Okay.
It's a sneaky illness. It comes and goes. Sometimes it's worse than other times.
Yes.
And then, sorry?
I'm listening.
And then I moved back home. I met my husband, got married, fell pregnant, and I was 8 months pregnant when the pandemic was announced, and the whole country went into level 5 lockdown. And as you can imagine, my anxiety skyrocketed, and all my careful plans to have a midwife and a doula and all sorts of things, they fell through the floor. And I was devastated. And yeah, but I gave birth in April 2020, and it was quite a traumatic time for me, being a new mom with a baby, a newborn, and not having any support because people, physically weren't able to come to me. And I remember it was one night, I think it was about 3 months in, and it was like 2:00 in the morning, and my baby had been crying nonstop. I didn't know what was wrong. I had fed him, changed him. He was just crying, and then I had him on my chest, and I just burst out crying, and then both of us were bawling our eyes out on the couch in the middle of the night. And it just dawned on me that something had to change. And like, as I said, anxiety is sneaky. So I didn't realize that how badly the anxiety had affected me. I needed that kind of low point to trigger something. And because of that moment, I could then pull on my skills, on the skills I've learned over the years on how to cope with anxiety. And I kind of pulled myself back out of this hole I found myself in. And through that process, I decided I wanted to help other mommies, because I think, pandemic or not, being a new mom can be very isolating and very traumatic for a lot of women. And, society wants you to feel like you must do everything on your own, and then you put so much pressure on yourself, and that's not right. That's not right. So I want to help other new mommies, and that's how I transitioned to the life coaching.
Oh, it's lovely. Thank you for sharing that with us. I can imagine, being a new mum can be quite stressful. I think the first 3 months for me were a blur. I can hardly remember the first 3 months. The waking up every, couple of hours, not enough sleep. And so I can imagine that, having the pandemic as well just created enormous amounts of stress.
Yeah, no, it really did.
Yeah. What are some of the most common anxieties that new mums face, and how do you help them overcome those fears?
Some of the more common anxieties is knowing whether you're making the right decisions.
Okay.
There, there is such a huge information overload on the internet when it comes to being a mom and raising your baby.
Yeah.
And oftentimes that advice is conflicting, from weaning your baby to sleep training to, I don't know, what else. And everyone will make you feel like if you're not following their advice to the letter, that you are somehow failing your baby and you are going to scar them for life.
Yeah.
And that puts an enormous amount of pressure on you to make the right decision. So that is one part of the anxiety. And something else is that as mothers, as women, actually, I think most females do this. We take a lot on our own shoulders. We want to help everyone. We want to be there for everyone. And now, when you have a baby, it's compounded because you obviously want the best for your baby.
Yeah.
And becoming a mom is actually such a fundamental shift to your own personality.
Yes.
And no one really prepares you for your own identity change, the responsibilities that you suddenly have on your shoulders, the judgment you suddenly get from everyone and anyone that thinks they have an opinion on how to raise your child. And so you need space and time to deal with your own emotions, but because you're so stuck in this mode of giving and giving and caring for your baby, it really is a bit of a vicious cycle, and that also leads to a lot of anxiety. And I think most moms don't even realize that they are suffering from anxiety because they're just in survival mode, like you say.
You stay up to date with latest research and techniques for helping new mums with anxiety, and how do you incorporate that into your knowledge, into your coaching practice?
So I read a lot. I research a lot. I'm an organizer and planner by nature. And I think that's also why becoming a first-time mom threw me for such a loop, because nothing prepared me to even research the changes it would have on me.
Yeah.
And so I use all of that information and I help mommies make decisions. I help them how to identify their values and how to prioritize.
Yeah.
I help them find their own way of doing things and how to rebuild their confidence.
Yeah.
And how to set boundaries. Boundaries is also very important.
I think boundaries is one of my favorite words.
Yeah.
So, I could say a lot of women feel guilty if they use the word no. It comes with a lot of guilt.
It
When
does.
they actually say, well, I can't at this moment, or do you mind if we leave it for another time?
Yeah, and boundaries are so important. I feel that, once again, similar to anxiety, is you don't realize how important boundaries are until someone points it out to you. Something as simple as someone refusing to give your baby back when you ask for your baby back is someone not respecting your boundaries.
Yeah.
And when you don't recognize it for what it is, that also creates that anxiety and that feeling of resentment within yourself. And even though it's so difficult to say no, it is really one of the most wonderful forms of self-care that you can practice. To say no.
With my clients, we sort of do, I call it life restructuring, because sometimes you get into this pattern of you wake up in the morning and you live your life and certain things happen, and then the next day it repeats. And I said, well, you just got to stop for a moment and just see, what's irritating you. Is there something that's happening throughout your day that that makes you feel uncomfortable, or is that you can improve, or you need to find some help? And then when you start fixing and doing these little things, your life does become easier and more harmonious, and it goes smoother, and you end up being happier than having these quite a few triggers that make you feel uncomfortable or agitated.
Exactly.
Or whatever it may be. Yeah.
I agree 100%. It's like that saying, I forgot who said it, but the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again,
Yes.
but expecting a different result.
Yeah. They say Einstein did that. It's Einstein's quote, but I'm not 100% sure as well. Could you share maybe a story or two of how you've helped some mummies, or how you can help them? What your coaching is like?
So there's these mommies, specifically there's this mom that struggles with boundaries,
Okay.
and she was saying how, actually it's what I mentioned before,
Yeah.
she was building up resentment towards her in-laws because they wouldn't respect her time with her baby. For example, she didn't want her baby exposed to their dog. They've got quite a big dog, and she was worried about that. And yet they insisted on holding the baby quite close to the dog,
Okay.
or not returning the baby to her when she was asking for her baby back because it was feeding time or whatever. And honestly, there doesn't need to be a reason for a mom to ask her baby back.
Yeah.
And so I just took her through, what are the boundaries? What does it mean when you set boundaries? What does that look like? And how it looks like when people are not respecting your boundaries. And then we worked on how to have those conversations with people, and how to be respectful, and yet at the same time set consequences for if your boundaries are not respected. And yes, so that's one of the main focus areas of my coaching.
A little bit about you now. How do you balance self-care with being a coach to new mummies, and also, so running a little business, and how does that come together?
With difficulty. I actually still have a 9-to-5 job as well.
Okay.
So I
Goodness.
am very, I am very, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm very deliberate about setting time aside for myself,
Yes.
because if you are not deliberate, it's not going to happen. So I have a yoga class I attend every week.
Okay.
I make a point of reading when I've got a few minutes free, instead of doom scrolling on my phone and social media.
Yeah.
I've actually only recently restarted doing this. I always loved reading, and it's fallen by the wayside the last couple of years. So now I'm focusing on reading again, and I'm loving it.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say,
Yes,
with the reading, I felt exactly the same as you, that I let it slide, and I thought, no, I wake up 20 minutes earlier so I can get even 20 minutes of reading in the morning, because I know if I don't read in the morning, the day is gone, and then, that's it. So
exactly.
it's
Exactly.
important to feed your soul and your mind through reading.
It is. And currently, I am also on this journey of healing my body through what I eat.
Okay.
And I know this is something quite close to your heart. So I am really focusing on eating properly, avoiding sugar and, simple carbs and things like that. And even though it sounds straightforward, I feel that is a very important aspect of self-care, because the worse you eat, the worse you feel, and the more difficult it is to take care of yourself. It's really important.
I think so. There's so many foods out there that might actually, trigger your anxiety. For example, too much caffeine or coffee. It could be that if you're not eating enough and, your blood sugar drops, your blood sugar levels drop, then that might make you feel, you lose energy or you're weak. And there's lots of research out there regarding the brain-gut axis. So if your gut's not in good shape, then that could also cause depression or anxiety. There's gluten that people react to. So I think it's
Exactly.
wonderful that you're looking at that side of looking after your body and going into nutrition.
Yeah, I've been avoiding caffeine for months now.
Mm-hmm.
That has made a huge difference. And what was the other thing? I am also avoiding dairy at the moment, and mostly avoiding any kind of carbs. I'm avoiding carbs as much as possible at the moment, except in its like fruit or vegetable form.
Yeah.
And that has made a huge difference, really. Brain fog as well. It's my brain fog is a lot better. Like, I don't suffer from that so much anymore.
I'm really happy to hear that. It's always nice to hear people's stories and get some feedback.
Yes.
It actually does work.
It does. It does.
What are some of the biggest misconceptions that people have about postpartum anxiety and depression? And how do you work to dispel those myths?
So, a lot of women don't even realize that postpartum anxiety is a thing.
Yeah.
Most women are aware of postpartum depression because it's spoken about a lot, but postpartum anxiety can be just as debilitating and is also a separate disease. And it is a mental disease, and it is something that is treatable, just like if you were to have flu.
Yes.
A lot of people in general think that mental illnesses are something to be ashamed of, and that it's something you can just wish your way out of. And that is not true. So a lot of what I try and teach is that postpartum anxiety and postpartum depression, as with any other mental illness, is an actual illness that is treatable, and you owe it to yourself to get that treatment. I mean, if you were sick with the flu or,
Yeah.
I don't know, tonsillitis or something, you're not just going to continue on with your life and hope you get better. You're going to go for medicine. You're going to go see a specialist, and you should do exactly the same for mental health issues.
Okay. So, in closing, what would you like to share with our listeners?
Have faith in yourself. Know that it is hard to be a mom, especially a new mom. It's not hard because you're doing something wrong. It's hard because it is hard. So have faith in yourself. You will get through this tough period, and don't be afraid to ask for help. We are supposed to have a village helping us raise our children, and our villages have disappeared.
Yeah.
So you're not supposed to be doing all of this alone. Ask for help, Mama. You deserve it.
If someone would like to contact you and book a session with you or reach out to you, how can they do that? Would you like to share your socials or?
Sure. My website is www.newmom.co.za. And if you add /coaching, you can get to my coaching page, but there's also contact information on there. I do also have a free download of positive affirmations to help you boost your self-confidence as a new mom. And you can get that at newmom.co.za/my affirmations. And then on Instagram, I'm mon.malan.
Well, it was lovely having you on the podcast. Thank you, Monika.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun.
My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Barbara's podcast. Don't forget to sign up for our newsletter or e-courses. Celebrate life, and see you at the next episode.